Good evening, everybody. Welcome. My name is Jen J. I'm an advanced holistic nutritionist, and tonight I'm going to be sharing 5 simple tips that you can use to beat the back to school stress. And this is not just for you, but this is also for your children. So go ahead and grab yourself a pen and paper so that you're ready to take some notes. Now, for those of you who don't know me or you're new to some of my webinars, I am a women's health and family nutritionist. I have a very strong focus on plant-based nutrition in my practice. I also hold a bachelor's degree in psychology, which has really helped arm me with the ability to understand how not just our body physically changes in health, but also how our brain is connected to that process. I'm also now a published author, and I'm a mom of one 5-year-old little girl. So I thought I would start off by asking you a question, and that is, what is stress? I think it's a word that we all use and get thrown around a lot. I'm stressed out. Are you stressed out? Feeling a lot of stress. But I think we kind of underestimate what it really actually means. So I thought I would explain it to you so you can have an understanding of what's actually happening to your body in a stressful moment. Okay. So number one, stress is a physiological response, meaning that it's actually a response on the body that is felt, but it's also a psychological response, meaning that it's also dealt with in the brain. So stress not only impacts our brain function, but it also impacts our biological body functions. It's a hormonal response where our kidneys release both adrenaline and cortisol. Cortisol is known to be our stress hormone. High levels of consistent cortisol can lead to a lot of health concerns, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But in a basic biological level, stress is actually life-saving. So when we think back to the days of when we were back in our caveman years, stress was actually something that helped us stay alive and helped keep us safe. It was a response that allowed our bodies to act quickly, to have faster response times, to be able to fight or flight, and to be able to just keep ourselves in a safe position. Now, in our modern lives, we obviously don't have that fight or flight experience on a regular basis in the same way that we did way back when. However, changing picture there, sorry. However, in our busy lives, we do have ebbs and flows of our stress levels, and that could be brought on by all kinds of different things, such as back to school. And so stress does serve a purpose. It does allow us the chance to adapt to our environment, to recognize when there's something that makes us uncomfortable. And so for that reason, it can be healthy. And then for other reasons, long-term chronic stress or high levels of stress can create an unhealthy experience inside of our body. So there's 3 different kinds of stress: acute, episodic, and chronic. So acute is a minor source of stress. It's common. It's often associated with anxiety and just anticipation of things. Likely the majority of us, if you're experiencing stress for back to school, this is likely what you are experiencing right now, likely what you're feeling. So typical symptoms would be stomach aches, headaches, an increase in your heartbeat, sweating, cold hands and feet, or irritability. And this is actually the kind of stress that you experience when you're on, say, like a roller coaster. So it's not always a negative response to your body. Sometimes it's in response to something positive or exhilarating in your life. Now, if you find that your children in the coming weeks are starting to experience these types of symptoms, things like a stomach ache or even difficulty falling asleep at night, these would be indicators to you that they are starting to experience some anxiety or high levels of anticipation and acute levels of stress regarding going back to school. Then we move into episodic, and this is a repeated exposure to acute levels of stress. So typical symptoms would be a life of chaos or crisis, being rushed, constantly worrying, being short-tempered, generally being an anxious person, feeling tightly wound, hostile, and it is actually a very good leading indicator of heart disease, okay? And a very good way to increase your chances of heart disease. So reducing your episodic stress, meaning reducing how many times you are exposed to acute levels of stress, can help reduce that. Now, some people tend to actually live a life in an episodic state, okay? So certain jobs actually require being in high levels of stress at certain times. And this is where we start to move into chronic levels of stress. And some people in general, so like a type A person would generally experience episodic stress on a regular basis because they are constantly worrying, they're short-tempered, they're tightly wound. They do live a life of chaos, even though they tend to be very rigid and structured. That can actually cause them more stress because they don't have that flexibility or that ability to be flexible in certain situations. Now, moving into chronic stress, this is a state of repetitive exposure to stress over time with the feeling of being trapped, hopeless, and helpless. So typical symptoms in this type of stress would be things like desensitization, numbness, and depression. Now, certain industries of work actually tend to push us into that episodic chronic stress level. So things like nurses, ER doctors, paramedics, firefighters, police officers, even some of those high risk job environments tend to see a lot of high stress levels like that. And unfortunately, what can happen with stress is that we can actually change our DNA or the coding of our DNA based on high stress levels. And so this can actually become a genetic exposure to our future children by having high levels of stress beforehand. So that's something to keep in mind, that, you know, maybe you don't live a stressful lifestyle now, but perhaps you did earlier on in your life. And so you have predisposed your children to that type of stress level. Plus, most of us, truthfully, don't have very good stress management skills or the ability to recognize when we're being triggered in a stressful situation. So we tend to actually parent the same way we were parented, which perpetuates the whole process with our children, and they learn those same coping mechanisms. So those are your 3 types of stress. Now, I want to challenge you with a quick question. Go ahead and leave it in the comments and tell me, what are the first couple of signs that you recognize when you're experiencing stress? What are some signs that you recognize in your body, in your behavior, in your mood, and in your children? So I know for me personally, I start getting really irritable if I'm stressed out. I have difficulty focusing on more than one thing at a time. I get really sensitive to noise and overstimulation when I'm getting stressed out. And my daughter is very similar to that. So she'll get stressed out if it's really busy and there's too many people around. And she actually then has difficulty falling asleep at night. And it can sometimes take her 2+ hours to fall asleep if she gets into that stress level. So I'm curious to know, what are some of the signs that you experience and your children experience as those leading indicators that you're stressed out? Typically, some of the symptoms that we do experience are symptoms of overwhelm, where we just can't seem to get on top of our daily tasks, in addition to, you know, all those tasks that come up as we're preparing for back to school, you know, all the shopping, all of the meal preparation, getting our kids ready, getting them prepared, having those conversations around back to school, and then just coordinating all that schedule change, right? Some other signs would be sleepless nights. So if you find that you or your children are having difficulty falling asleep at night or waking up frequently during the night, that would be some signs that you're experiencing stress as a result of going back to school. And then another one would be constant yelling, arguing, irritability, or mental breakdowns. And I don't mean that in like some huge catastrophic way. I just mean, you know, if your child is starting to have more outbursts or seems more emotional than normal, or just can't seem to manage their emotions, they're likely starting to experience levels of stress that is not being addressed. So here are a couple of reasons why we would want to manage stress levels, not just for ourselves, but for our children. So number one, earlier we talked about how high levels of stress and constant stress increases our chances of heart disease. So for a good, healthy heart, we want to make sure that we are managing our stress levels. Our mental health is another one. So when we start to get into that chronic stress, that's when we start to become numb and desensitized to our environments and to our stimulus and the things that actually trigger our stress. And so we stay in this constant state of depression because of it. So our mental health is, of course, a very, very big one. But other reasons that we would want to manage our stress would be things like digestive issues. Sometimes we don't even recognize that, we're in or experiencing acute or episodic levels of stress, but we've got some massive digestive issues going on that we can't really seem to figure out. And oftentimes that is related to stress. Hormones is another one. If you have followed along in any of my other webinars that I've done, you'll know that hormones is a really big topic for me. And stress tops the chart when it comes to women and hormone imbalances, and that it really does interfere with how a woman's menstrual cycle and sex hormones regulate. So ensuring that your stress levels are managed can really, really help balance hormones in general, not just your sex hormones, but things like adrenaline and things like melatonin and dopamine, and just your ability to function regularly on a day-to-day basis. Having those in a healthy balance within your body is ideal so that you look and feel your best every day. Stress also takes a very big toll on the immune system. So we want to make sure that by managing our stress, we are allowing our body to work efficiently at what it does and protect ourselves from colds and flus. And then lastly, for our children, we want to be managing our stress in really healthy ways and showing our coping mechanisms to our children, because this is how our children are going to learn their coping mechanisms. So maybe you don't have the healthiest coping mechanisms when it comes to stress. I know I don't. I have to be intentional about ensuring that I am being being more intentional about managing my stress in a very positive way and showing my daughter that I'm doing that, or even at least expressing myself when I am stressed out so that she learns those healthy habits as well, so that she can identify what she's feeling, what she needs, and how she can go about managing that. So we set the precedence for the way our children manage these types of emotions and these physical responses in our body. And so by modeling that good behavior or that desired behavior, even if it's not natural for you, that desired behavior that you want from your children is a really great reason that you would want to manage your stress levels so that we can reduce the chronic stress that our children experience, the episodic and the acute. So here are 5 tips to beating the back to school stress that you may be experiencing. So number 1 is routines. Your daily routine matters. They provide consistency for both you and your children. They provide expectations and the chance for your children to be independent. By having a routine in place, your children know what is expected of them every single day, and it allows them that chance to work towards those goals, to work towards those micro activities in their day and know that they're moving forward in a positive way without feeling like they don't know what's going on in the day. Okay? Routines also help reset the circadian rhythm in our body. That is our body's natural internal clock that indicates what time we should be waking up, what time we should be going to sleep, but also helps regulate our body's ability to reduce cortisol, to improve sleep, to manage stress naturally, and to improve the immune system and our digestive system. When our circadian rhythm is not working efficiently, you'd be surprised the ripple effect that it causes in the body that can interfere with how you feel when you're stressed out. But routines also help reduce overwhelm. And so by having that routine in place, it is crucial for the whole family to be on board with it. So, we're a couple of weeks out from school starting. If you're here in Canada, if you're down in the States, school has already started, but it's not too late. You're going to want to start a bedtime routine. Make sure your kids have a wind down time. Make sure they have time to talk about their day. Make sure they have time to reflect on their day, either with you as a parent, with one of their siblings, in a journal, independently, in their thoughts, whatever works for your child and their age grouping is a really great way for your child to start to manage and reflect on how they feel every day. So that when they go to bed, they're going to bed with a clear conscience, a clear mind, and they're not replaying stress and situations in their mind that might be perpetuating that stress level and interfering with sleep. Okay? Start a wake up routine. So, yes, it's hard. It means you have to do the same. Set your alarm, stick to it. If you have been off your routines for quite some time, either because of summer routines or because of school closures months ago, that's okay. Don't start with something totally drastic. Start with something, say if your goal for school wake up time is 6 a.m. and right now everyone's getting up around 7:30. Well, you've got 3 weeks to adjust that. So every week, cut your alarm back by half an hour. So you're working backwards and getting used to that routine. Having that wake up time and that bedtime routine is going to help reset that circadian rhythm so that by the time school starts, you're all in a healthy mindset and a physically healthy environment to manage any stress that you feel coming on or experience as the result. And start making packed lunches now. Please don't wait until the first week of school to make packed lunches, because you're going to have to figure out a routine. You're going to have to figure out what works for your family. So start making them now. Get everybody in the routine of having to have a packed lunch, of having to make their lunches, of having to unpack their lunch bags at the end of the day, of having to get those dishes done, of having to think about what's coming tomorrow for a meal, or what kind of routines you have going on. So if your kids are going back into extracurricular sports or whatever commitments you have going on, knowing that is going to help you better plan for that now rather than being thrown into the whirlwind of it later. So tip number 2 is really comes down to food. Okay. So you're going to want to meal plan together. Sit down together, come up with 20 lunch ideas. That's 4 weeks worth of a new lunch every single day for the first month. And the easy thing is you could actually repeat that every month. So come up with 20 lunch ideas together with the family. Then come up with 20 easy supper ideas. Write down a schedule of what your family's commitments look like now, coming up in September, October, whenever extracurriculars come back in for your family. Write that down so that everybody sees where nights are going to be hectic, where it's going to be really busy, where you're going to have to rely on leftovers, crock-pot meals, and simple alternatives. Okay. Then get familiar with meal prepping together. So make it like a buffet chain. Okay. So, or even like a cook line, right? Everybody has a job. Everybody has a task. So, maybe somebody is making sandwiches and somebody is chopping veggies and somebody is preparing fruits and somebody is preparing an extra snack and somebody is making smoothie packages. Like, get everybody together, meal prepping these all options so that it becomes a process for everybody and makes it easier, lessens the load on you as a parent, but it also encourages a lot of independence and life skills in your children. Decide as a family when lunches will be made. For some families, it totally works making lunch the morning of before you go to school. And for some families, it does not. Some families have to have lunches made the night before. So decide with your family when that is going to be the best option. This is going to help eliminate some of that crazy rushed feeling that we feel as we're trying to get everybody out the door and still pack lunches. Okay. Now, some really great resources to help you have some healthy options available to you would be the HLR, the Healthy Living Revolution Start Strong book. In that is some incredible healthy lunch snack options, some grocery lists, and then of course the Summertime Snack Recipe book, which was just released, is also another great option for having snack meals or snack ideas. And then any of the Healthy Living Revolution recipe books in general, I believe there's 4, 5, 6 of them that would be handy for lunch and supper ideas, can really very quickly help you put together your 20 lunch ideas and your 20 supper ideas. If you do not have copies of those books, just let us know in the comments. We will send them over to you so that you can look through them and get started with this tip right away, because the sooner you start implementing this, the easier it becomes a routine. Now, tip number 3, breathe. Okay, breathing has the ability to deeply calm the mind and body, which brings a sense of peace and tranquility to whatever you're dealing with. Okay, so take some time out of your daily routines to breathe deeply and to do so in a fresh, natural environment to enable the inhalation of fresh air and maximize those benefits. So if you're feeling stressed out, or you're starting to feel overwhelmed, or your children are getting really antsy, or they're not feeling well, or you can tell that something is not right, go outside and do some breathing. Go for a short walk, sit together in the park, go sit in the grass, whatever it is, do some deep breathing. That's going to help your mindset readjust to your environment. This is something that's really hard for a lot of us to do, because I think, we were told as children, okay, just breathe and you'll be fine. And we kind of overlooked the value in that as we grew up. And yet, if you take the time to do it when you're starting to feel anxious and you're starting to feel like snapping, or your children are starting to have meltdowns, or they're starting to act out, it's something that we can do anytime, anywhere, that can really help rebalance us in the moment and provide a long-term benefit to our health. Number 4 is talk it out. This is a really big one. I think a lot of us, we get so caught up in the hype and the craziness of going back to school, and just, the rush of everything we have to coordinate and the things we have to do, that we actually kind of forget to talk to our children about going back to school. And what happens is our energy is reflected in the way that we parent and the way that we talk to our kids and the energy that they receive. And so when we talk it out, when we have these conversations with our children, it actually allows them the opportunity not only to understand what you're feeling about them going back to school, but for them to express to you how they're feeling about it. And that is so key when we can be an active listening parent to our children's needs and emotions. So ask your children how they're feeling about school, right? Just come out and ask when the topic comes up, how are you feeling about going back to school? So let them express their joy and their excitement and their sadness and their anxieties. And they'll have days where they're super excited to go, and they're going to have days where, suddenly the anxiety or the reality of going back to school kicks in, and, suddenly they're anxious about it. What if they haven't seen their friends in a couple of months? What if they're no longer friends? What if they don't like them? What if they're, starting a new school, right? What if they have natural social anxieties? What if your child is an introvert? What if the idea of being in a classroom makes your child nervous? Let them express that. And in that conversation, tell them about your experiences at school. And even though our children's school environments right now are totally different than ours were as children, that doesn't mean that we didn't have experiences at school that can validate the way your child is feeling, that can offer some reassurance, that can provide some solutions, and that allows your children to see that, what they're experiencing and what they're feeling and what they're telling you is a normal part of going back to school. Okay. So give them a safe space to problem solve their worries. Don't always give them the solution to their concerns. Maybe they've got a concern about not having any friends when they go to school. Don't give them the solution to that. Ask leading questions that can allow them the opportunity to come up with their own solutions. Trust me, it's really hard. This is one that I personally struggle with, because, as a mom, all I want to do is just keep my baby safe, right? And just take away all their pain and their discomfort. But really, not our children any good when we do that, because they're not learning their own self-coping mechanisms. So give them that safe space to problem solve their worries, ask those leading questions, support their ideas, and bring them to a place where they feel confident in their ideas to implement them. Okay? And then, of course, you can role play some of these back to school scenarios. You could be that friend they haven't seen in forever, and they can talk it out with you and role play how that's going to go. And maybe your child is riding the bus for the first time this year, so you could do some role playing activities for bus scenarios. Okay. And then lastly, just ask them how you can help or support them in their back to school transition, right? Ask them what they need. When you start to notice they're looking anxious or feeling anxious, or they're starting to have trouble sleeping, or they're starting to act out, or they're starting to get belly aches every day, ask them what they need. Ask them what they want you to do to support them. This gives them that empowerment to know that they're in control of the way that they feel, and know that they're in a safe place to feel it. And then lastly, and this is such a big one, and not just because of, the worldwide pandemic going on, but just in general. Like, I don't know if you've noticed, I'm sure you have, but every time our kids go back to school, they all get sick within 6-8 weeks and they've all got a cold of some kind. So tip number 5 is prep your child's immune system, and prep yours, because the last thing you want to be doing is having to take more time off work while your kids are home with, a runny nose, and then you catch the same thing, right? So here are a couple of ways you can prep both your children's and your own immune system so that you guys are ready for that back to school, back to work environment where everybody is all back together. So number 1, get more sleep. I cannot stress that one enough. Just sleep. Shut your devices off, go to bed at a good hour, set your alarm so you're waking up at the same time every day, and get good sleep. Number 2, exercise daily. Exercising actually, does a couple of things. The increased breathing actually allows our respiratory system to air itself out, meaning that any viruses or bacteria sitting in our respiratory system is actually pushed out on a regular basis, okay? But also what happens when we exercise is that we actually elevate our body's temperature both during and after exercise. And this elevated body temperature produces an environment where viruses cannot actually thrive. So that's a really cool, neat, fun fact, right? So exercising daily beyond, the basics of, why we should be, can actually help prepare your immune system for, going back into society. Then you're going to want to ditch the processed foods. I know that's a hard one. It's a really, really hard one, especially for all of us busy parents with kids in all kinds of activities. But ditching those processed foods can help in providing our body and our gut system with a good environment for our immune system to thrive. Most of us don't know this, but about 70% of our immune system actually lives in our gut. So if we're harming our gut, we're actually harming our immune system, and then we're not setting ourselves up for success, and especially our children. Make sure that we're starting to cut back on those processed foods and those refined sugars that have probably crept their way into most of our diets over the last couple of months. And then lastly, to prep your immune system, you're going to want to eat more whole foods, more fruits, more vegetables, more whole grains, more plant-based proteins. Adding in more whole foods can really help provide your immune system that boost that it needs. It provides a healthy gut environment for that immune system to thrive. It provides our cells with those minerals and vitamins and all those phytonutrients that it needs in order to do its job efficiently, so that we, can manage stress, and so that we can get good sleep, and so that we can exercise and have energy, and so that we have the willpower and the physical ability to decline processed foods and manage our emotions and manage our moods, have more stable moods. So eating more whole foods is a fantastic way to also prep your immune system. Now, most of us know that we need to eat more servings of fruits and veggies every day. In fact, we need to be eating about 7 to 13 servings of fruits and veggies every day. And despite our best efforts, most of us, myself included, do not always hit that mark. It's hard, right? We don't always have the time. We don't always have the prep work done. We don't always even have the knowledge, how to add more fruits and veggies to our recipes. Sometimes it can be really hard trying to squeeze that in. Then, of course, we run into our children who have totally different requirements because, they're picky eaters. Today they like green foods and tomorrow they only like orange. And so, that swing in the types of foods that they'll eat and try can really make it difficult for us to be consistent in eating that many fruits and veggies every day. That's why I really love adding the Juice Plus capsules to both my nutritional tool belt, but also to that of my clients. It helps provide that backup of over 30 fruits and veggies that actually makes it into the bloodstream to produce good, healthy results in the body. It's whole foods. It's literally all just plant-based concentrated nutrition that helps bridge the gap between what we do eat and what we should eat every single day. But the also really cool thing is, and this just gets me so excited is that it's actually also clinically proven to help support the immune system, which is incredible. So, not only are you eating more whole foods just in general, but when you're adding Juice Plus to your toolbox of health, you are helping to support that immune system in the easiest way possible. Now, if you're not familiar with what Juice Plus is, I'll explain it really quick. The concentrated nutrition from 30 fruits, veggies, and berries added to your diet in a convenient capsule format. The whole foods are actually harvested at peak ripeness. Nutrition is kept intact. It's all pulverized. It's not juiced, so it's better than juicing. And it's dried into powders at low temperatures to preserve that nutrition. Plant powders are then put into the capsules and even chewables, which are available for children for free. Okay, so let's get into that for a minute here. So not only are you going to help support your immune system, but for free, you can have your child doing the same, which is an incredible way to help prepare both you and your children for back to school, back to work environments. Okay. Now the chewables are made with the powders in a really delicious gummy format. They are actually available for adults as well. But of course, they're very popular with children. They're plant-based, gluten-free. They're made without GMO ingredients, which is really huge, right, nowadays, because who knows what we buy in the grocery store anymore. And they're close to nature and minimally processed, which makes them a very healthy alternative to some of the other ones on the market. Now, the free Choose for Children is part of the Healthy Starts for Family program, which makes good nutrition and healthy living for families an easy process. So after 1 year, parents have actually been reporting that 61% of their kids are eating more fruits and vegetables for free, right? Remember, they're getting these chewables for free. So these are really important stats that are happening in families for doing this, okay? 71% are consuming less fast food and soft drinks, which means they have stronger gut systems, better digestion, healthier habits in general, less chance of diabetes and obesity, and a great environment for a strong immune system. They're also visiting the doctor less. 66% of kids are visiting the doctor less. That's awesome. I don't know about you, but nowadays it takes several weeks to get into to see our doctors with the back order of everything going on. And so, the less time that we have to get into the doctor, the better. And then 56% of families are actually reporting that they're taking less over-the-counter prescription medication. So again, stronger immune systems, healthier bodies. It's really fantastic. And the cool thing is there are actually over 1 million families participating in the Healthy Starts for Family program. Incredible, right? So this is what you're looking at for a starting point. So for both you and your family, if you are here in Canada, this is only $65 a month. That's it. So very easy to do. So there's taxes depending on your region, so your province, and $10 shipping cost on that. But that's it. So 2 capsules per day for you of each color, and 2 chewables per color for your child if they're under 13, or 4 chewables per day per color if your children are over 13. Now, the really cool thing is this also applies to your children if they are over 18 and enrolled full-time in college or university. So, if you're sending kids off to school this year, like literally off to college and university, they can still help bridge that gap under the free Healthy Starts for Families. So just a really quick recap, 5 tips to beating the back to school stress is 1, set that routine. Your daily routine seriously matters. Make your food a priority. Nutrition is one of, I think it's like 80% of good health, okay? 3, breathe, relax, breathe that good air in, breathe that stress out. 4, talk it out with your family. Have the conversations with your kids. Have your conversations with your spouse. And it's reciprocal. Your kids should be telling you the way they're feeling. You should be telling your kids how they're feeling. And then 5, add more whole food to your diet every single day. Bridge that gap by adding the Juice Plus and Healthy Starts for Families program to your nutritional toolbox for as low as $65 per month. Now, thank you all so much for being here tonight. I really appreciate it. Let us know in the comments if you're ready to get started, or go ahead and connect back with the person who invited you to this webinar for more information. Don't forget to mention in the comments if you are wanting a copy of the Start Strong Kids Challenge, the Summertime Snacks Recipe Book, or any other Healthy Living Revolution recipe book, so that you can start making the nutrition a priority in your lifestyle and in your routines as you prepare for back to school. Thank you all so much for being here. Bye.